All right, so at this moment, we're going to be looking at part five of Mao's consolidation of power. It's more specifically looking at part two of the Cultural Revolution. As we mentioned in the last lecture, with the Cultural Revolution being implemented after Mao steps back and now he's trying to come back, with the implementation of the Cultural Revolution, there are a lot of purges, right? People being geeked out, people being exposed as fake. One of them is Wu Han, a playwright who was basically implemented a play that kind of gave a little shade to Mao and what was happening. It's not like he was murdered or anything, right? He was just kind of like Lin Biao, the guy that was super loyal who wrote the Little Red Book off of Mao's quotes and right hand man of Mao at this point. Um, Launched a campaign attack, just basically saying, "Hey, this guy's trash. Don't watch his movie." Basically, okay. So that's what happened. Another moment that we have to look into the Cultural Revolution is the power struggle within the CCP. So you have people in the CCP who are moderates, and you have people in the CCP who are all the way to the left, right? Very communist, very to the left. One of them was Mao's wife, Jiang Qing, who was part of this group called the Gang of Four. And so during this thing called the Shanghai Forum, which is like just a meeting, just think of it as a meeting, the Gang of Four, her and along with three other people who were very devoted to the party, very devoted to Mao, very devoted to going to the left, they didn't want to compromise. And that's basically what they advocated for in the forum of like, we're done compromising. We've had already done that in the past. That did not work out. Now it's us. It's our turn to basically do what we need to. And anybody who goes against us is betraying the party, betraying Mao, and betraying the people and the revolution, right? Because this is what the revolution fought for. So what they argued in the Shanghai Forum was that, but also that the PLA should advocate or look for people to root out people who are taking that capitalist road, that capitalist mentality. So one of the targets were the Group of Five, led by Peng Sheng, the mayor of Beijing, who was seen as a moderate, who was seen as having capitalist. Sorry, I'm gonna keep hitting the mic with my hand. Capitalist tendencies, and so basically that's what they advocated for, and there was a giant purge happening, and so the PLA was used, the red guards were used, and so enemies were defined as counter-revolutionary, so just people going against the revolution and who were conservative minded, okay. um, and so basically they argued that this is what needed to happen in order for the dictatorship of the people, right? That's what they believe in. They believe in that it's not Mao who's the dictator, but it's the common people who are calling the shots, the common people who are in charge, the authority of the people. And if we wanted to keep that in place, then this needed to happen. If not, it would resort to the old system where the rich people were the ones um, pushing what they wanted instead of what the common people want, okay? So going on with the Cultural Revolution, the purge within the party became a national movement with Lin Biao using posters and campaigns and putting them up in universities and schools to ignite students, college students. I'm not talking about little kids, elementary school. I'm talking about college students, probably upperclassmen in high school, um, and urging teachers as well to act up against those who went against the revolution. Okay, so in 1966, Mao, has a comeback um, and staged an event. And I wish I would have added the photo. Gosh darn it! A staged an event where he's 73 years old at this point, and he's going to swim across the Yangtze River. Um, and so this river's really freaking big, by the way, and it's a pretty strong river. It's the nation's greatest river, and it was seen as the life force of China because water is life, right? Water brings so many things to the people living in the area, and so people took photographs of Mao doing this, and it kind of like it got people hyped. Um, People were like, "Yeah, that's Mao. Wow, look, he's swimming across the river. Like I'm hyped. I'm hyped. Like my leader is strong, right?" And so in 1966, after that event, Mao called on members of the CCP to renew the class struggle, right? To make sure that the working class people are the head of the movement and remove anybody who was headed towards going back towards capitalism. So Lin Biao was promoted to second in command by Mao. This was long overdue. He's very loyal. Little Red Book, as you can see him with that. There's a bunch of rallies that are put in place after that. Demonstrations organized by him, Lin Biao as well, and Shen Bora, and basically they take place in Tiananmen Square. millions of people show up to multiple of these rallies because it's more than one, and all of them have copies of the Little Red Book. And you can see this photograph doesn't really do it justice, right? Um, in terms of how many people are in the crowd, and they're chanting like Mao Zedong is the red sun rising in the east, and Chairman Mao, you may live for 1,000 years. And so sometimes Mao would show up to these rallies. Sometimes Mao didn't need to show up to these rallies because it's more of a, you know, people are there for the party. People are there. They're hyped. They don't really need me to show up, but I'll show up every now and then. And so it's kind of like Mao's claiming that this was a remolding of the soul of his people. It's kind of like changing the mentality of the people, solidifying going into this direction that they envisioned for China. And it's working out great for them at this moment in time. The Red Guards come in, and so it's a bunch of young people. Okay, the Red Guards are composed of mostly young individuals. Like I said, I would say probably the youngest high school, and the oldest are like college students, college graduates as well. So the Red Guards and the destruction of the Four Olds is happening. So August 1st, 1966, Mao asked the University of Tsinghua, I'm gonna I'm gonna assume that's how you say it, to invade the headquarters to target enemies of the revolution. And so, to be more specific, because a target can be anybody, Mao identified the four olds for young people to attack. Basically, old ideas, old culture, old custom, old habits. Anything that kind of went against the revolution, kind of went against the progress of the working class people, was targeted. So we'll look into those. But the youth were very eager and very like hyped to do this. Is like, and the reason why is because they felt like they were part of the revolution. They felt like even if they had not fought in the war, they still can contribute to the progression of the revolution by targeting things that stood in the way of furthering the revolution, right? So this is an example of how well Mao was able to mobilize the youth and build a social movement with very young people. If you can get young people on your side, like, it's over, right? And that's what Mao had. He had young people. So one of the olds that was being basically knocked down was religion, Confucian, right? So we looked at the Tibetan Buddhists, and there's going to be a mention of the Xiangjing. I think that's how I'm saying it, right? I can't remember the spelling of it. Of the Muslims in that region as well, with Confucian as well. As so remember in the beginning of our learning of Mao, there was this religion that was put into place, and this religion was there to kind of keep people in check in terms of, you don't question the status quo, you don't question those who are in power, you don't question the fact that you might be poor and they are rich, and you need to be proud of the fact that you're slaving away from these people. And that's what some of what this religion was being used to push, right? Not everybody, but some people in power were using this religion to kind of keep people complicit. And so that was one of the old ideas, old habits, old cultural things that was left behind, and that the Red Guards were trying to destroy. So they destroy old historical and cultural sites that symbolize that religion, to get rid of that old mentality of the upper class are the ones we need to submit to, right? They took control of public transportation, media, anything that promoted the thinking of the rich. School teachers, university and staff, and intellectuals who did not align themselves with the movement or those who promoted capitalism were labeled as rightists and forced to confess their class crimes. So, if you were, like I said, if I was living in China and I was going against Mao and kind of preaching the opposite and preaching the old traditions and the old ways and the old way of thinking, then I would be a target of like, oh yeah, like I have to apologize to a bunch of people, right? A whole crowd. So just think of it that way. Ministry of Public Security allowed these actions to continue, but they also gave them even more targets. So landlords, people who are, charging rent to people so that they can, live in a home, right? Rich peasants. There were some rich peasants. I know the word peasants is like, we think of peasants and we think of like poor, poverty. That's not always the case. You will have some very rich peasants who have a lot of land and kind of exploit a lot of people. Reactionaries, again, reactionaries, if you forgot what that word is conservative, right-wing capitalist, okay? Bad elements. Your book doesn't give me specifics about what they mean by that, but I guess, I don't know, I'm just going to assume bad vibes, okay? And then rightists, people who go to the right. mentally instead of politically to the left. The cultural movement touched all of China, even the remote areas, and Mao's cult personality and just the, loving Mao and being down for Mao is just growing and growing. Next one. So one of the targets, remember Deng Xiaoping, when Mao steps back, he comes in, right? So he comes in and he's tasked with Liu Shaoqi. I'm so sorry. To basically they're the moderates, and they were in charge of kind of reversing some of the famine and some of the things that were happening in China. And so they're the moderates. So even those devoted to the CCP became targets. In October 1966, Deng Xiaoping and Liu were labeled as not following the party line, and Leo and his wife were dragged out of their homes, and Leo was forced to confess his crimes during the struggle recession. I know the word dragged out seems intense. I'm just talking about like, hey, come on, let's go, grabbing them out of their homes. He was imprisoned, and he did end up passing due to health conditions, complications, while he was in prison. I'm not sure I'm not sure exactly what it was that he suffered from, some health condition before all of this happened. Deng, on the other hand, Xiaoping, was also publicly humiliated and placed into solitary confinement for a while by the Red Guards, but eventually he was sent to perform correctional labor as a punishment by the party. Moderates were being removed by the CCP, and the influence of Liang Bi and Jiang Xing increased and were appointed head of the PRC's secret police. Both of them would inform the Red Guards of ministries and officials that they should target, and more than 500,000 CCP officials were targeted. There were a lot of people, okay? So, for example, like I said, Deng Xiaoping, he was a target, but he does end up becoming very important later on. He comes back, and he does have a leadership position in China. Another person that was targeted was the father of the current president of China right now, President Xi. His dad was one of the people that was removed for being a moderate. But it sounds very intense, but that doesn't mean that these people were executed or killed or anything like that. I mean, you can even see that Deng Xiaoping comes into power in a position of power in China and leads China as well after Mao passes. Same thing with the current president of China. His dad was one of those people, and now he is the leader of the Chinese Communist Party. So it's kind of like, it's just a lot of drama. Just think of it as drama, political drama. We have political drama all the time in the United States. I mean, look at what the Democratic Party does to Bernie Sanders all the time. All right. So it's just, it seems very intense, is what I'm saying. And it was intense, but like I said, these people were not really necessarily executed unless you committed very heinous crimes. Um, so the last slide for today, the Cultural Revolution in 1967, Mao wanted to provoke anti-imperialist unrest in the British colony of Hong Kong. Hong Kong is in Chinese territory and has historically belonged to China, but the British still had control of that city, of that region. And so Mao was like, I want to kick the British out once and for all. So go over to Hong Kong and just kind of cause chaos and kind of unrest so that we can eventually take Hong Kong for us. And so that was the goal. That was the plan. 5 officers died in the region, and there were more than 160 bombs that went off, but the British did not react. The bombs weren't there to kill, the people of Hong Kong. The bombs were there to kind of just send the message. But 5 police officers died. Your book doesn't go into it, but I'm pretty sure from what I've read, it was just a lot of conflict between fighting, right? So that's it for today. I'm gonna leave it at that. Have a good day. See you later. Bye.